the secret spy's plan. Elias traced the rim of his espresso cup, the clatter of the busy cafe a distant hum against the furious drumming in his veins. The air, thick with the scent of roasted beans and sugar, felt suffocating. He'd barely slept, the image of the hotel staff's sneering faces burned into his mind. Their dismissal of him, the casual cruelty, had been a calculated blow. Now, it was time for his counterattack, precise and absolute. Across the worn wooden table, Isabella adjusted her glasses, her gaze sharp. The internal security schematics for the Paradiso are a maze, Elias. Even for me. She pushed a tablet across to him, its screen glowing with intricate blueprints. But I've found a backdoor. A legacy system vulnerability in their HR department's server. It's archaic, but surprisingly still active. A slow smile spread across Elias's face, a predator's grin. Perfect. That's where we strike first. He remembered the dismissive way the hotel manager, a slick-haired man named Thorne, had looked at him. The way the concierge had openly snickered. This wasn't just about business anymore, it was personal. He wouldn't just reclaim his investment, he would unravel their entire operation, brick by brick. Once we're in, he continued, his voice low and intense, we access the employee records. Pay scales, disciplinary actions, internal complaints. Everything. He tapped a finger against the tablet screen, pointing to a server room indicated on the blueprint. Then, we use that data to create a meticulously timed, public exposé. Not just of Thorne, but of every single staff member who participated in my eviction. He savored the word, a bitter taste. They'll be facing a class action lawsuit for discrimination, a media frenzy, and a complete breakdown of trust. Their careers, their reputations, gone. Isabella nodded, her expression grim but resolute. It's a scorched earth policy, Elias. Are you sure? He met her gaze, his eyes burning with a coal fire. Absolutely. They thought they could discard me like yesterday's trash. They're about to learn that some trash has a very long fuse, and a very explosive plan. He took a sip of his now cold espresso, the bitterness a fitting prelude to the storm he was about to unleash. A cold welcome. The wind, sharp as a freshly honed blade, whipped around Mateo's tailored suit as he stepped out of the black car. Even through the expensive fabric, a chill seeped into his bones, a stark contrast to the heated cabin he'd just vacated. The Grand Regent, usually a beacon of warmth and opulent light, now loomed before him, an imposing, dark monolith against the bruise-colored twilight sky. Only the porte-cochere offered a meager glow, illuminating a solitary figure, a new, unfamiliar doorman, his face impassive, almost carved from the same cold stone as the hotel's facade. Mateo approached, his stride purposeful, the crisp gravel crunching under his Italian leather shoes. Evening, he said, his voice a low rumble, accustomed to being instantly recognized. Mateo Vargas. I believe my luggage was already sent up. The doorman's eyes, the color of slate, flickered over Mateo's expensive attire, then dismissed him with a subtle, almost imperceptible shift. Mr. Vargas? I have no record of you, sir. And we're fully booked. His tone was flat, devoid of the practiced courtesy Mateo expected from Grand Regent staff. It was a voice designed to deflect, not assist. A knot tightened in Mateo's stomach. This wasn't a mistake, it was deliberate. He pulled out his phone, scrolling to the reservation confirmation. I assure you, I have a suite reserved. Under Vargas. The doorman didn't even glance at the screen. I'm sorry, sir. There must be some misunderstanding. Perhaps you're thinking of a different establishment? His gaze drifted past Mateo, as if searching for a more legitimate guest. A cold fury began to simmer beneath Mateo's calm exterior. This wasn't merely an inconvenience, it was a calculated insult, a deliberate blockade. He knew, with an unsettling certainty, who was behind this. No misunderstanding, Mateo stated, his voice now edged with steel. There will be a very clear understanding, very soon. He turned, the wind catching his coattails, and hailed a passing taxi. The Grand Regent's cold, indifferent facade-stuck image burned into his mind. He wasn't just checking in, he was investigating. The unkind words. The cloying scent of stale coffee and apprehension permeated the executive boardroom, a stark departure from its usual crisp linen and fragrant orchids. Mateo, still clad in his travel-worn, slightly rumpled suit, confronted the assembled senior staff, his features set in a mask of rigorous control. His earlier composure had fractured, replaced by a glacial resolve that sent shivers down spines. "Explain," he commanded, his voice a low, dangerous rumble that seemed to vibrate through the polished mahogany. "Explain why I was denied entry to my own suite. Explain why my identity was questioned, my integrity impugned." His gaze speared Mr. Davies, head of guest services, whose usually ruddy complexion had drained to a pale, sleek sheen of sweat. "Sir, there must be some misunderstanding," Davies stammered, fumbling with his tie knot. "Our records, your name, it wasn't on the VIP list as expected. We thought you were attempting to bypass security protocols." Mateo's laugh was humorless, a sharp, disembodying sound. "Bypass? I am the owner of this establishment, Mr. Davies. I embody the security protocol. And you, and your team, failed spectacularly." He paused, allowing the gravity of his indictment to settle. "The way I was handled, the thinly veiled disdain, the implication that I was somehow lesser. It was unprofessional, unacceptable, and frankly, deeply insulting." He pivoted to Miss Albright, the HR director, whose meticulously coiffed hair seemed to droop under his intense scrutiny. "And you, Miss Albright. Your staff's training clearly lacks a fundamental grasp of respect, discretion, and basic human decency. This isn't a minor oversight, it's a systemic breakdown. This isn't just about my personal experience, it's about every guest who might feel marginalized or dismissed." The ensuing silence was thick, suffocating. Mateo picked up a pristine white pen from the table, examining it as if deciphering ancient runes. "Effective immediately," he stated, his voice devoid of all inflection, "your services, and those of everyone involved in my unwelcome reception, are no longer required." He met Davies's wide, disbelieving eyes. "The entire staff on duty this morning, from the front desk personnel to the security detail, is terminated. Instantly." Manager's dismissal. The crisp morning air usually invigorated Mateo, but today it felt heavy, pressing down on his chest. He stood in the opulent lobby, the polished marble reflecting the anxious faces of several hotel managers, all summoned with unusual urgency. A hushed murmur rippled through the group as Mr. Abernathy, the regional director, emerged from the executive suite, his usually jovial face set in grim lines. Beside him, a stern-faced woman in a severe business suit held a thick file. "Good morning, everyone," Abernathy began, his voice devoid of its usual warmth. "As you know, our recent mystery shopper evaluation yielded some concerning results." His gaze swept over them, lingering momentarily on Mateo, who met it with a steady, unreadable expression. "Specifically, the performance of our front office manager, Mr. Eduardo Ramirez, has fallen significantly below expectations." A collective gasp went through the room. "Eduardo," a portly man with a perpetually harried look, paled visibly. His eyes darted to Mateo, a silent plea for intervention. Mateo remained still, his hands clasped behind his back, a silent observer. Effective immediately, Abernethy continued, his voice hardening, Mr. Ramirez's employment with the Grand Regency is terminated. Eduardo's jaw dropped. Terminated. But, why? I've been here 15 years. The stern woman stepped forward. Mr. Ramirez, the report details numerous instances of inefficiency, customer complaints, and a general lack of proactive management. Your access will be revoked, and security will escort you to collect your personal effects. A wave of nausea washed over Mateo. He felt the tremor in Eduardo's voice, saw the raw humiliation in his eyes. A flash of anger ignited within him, a slow burn that promised retribution. This wasn't just about performance, it was about power, and a cold, calculating disregard for human dignity. As Eduardo was led away, his shoulders slumped in defeat, Mateo made a silent vow. This hotel, this entire system, was about to feel the full force of his true identity. Pushed out. The crisp hum of the air conditioning did little to dissipate the heavy atmosphere in the executive office. Ricardo stood, arms crossed, facing a wall of floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the bustling city. The hotel's general manager, a man named Sterling with an unnervingly placid smile, sat behind an expensive mahogany desk, flanked by two stone-faced security guards. Mr. Silver, Sterling began, his voice smooth as aged scotch. There seems to be a misunderstanding regarding your access to the executive suites. Ricardo turned, his gaze unwavering. My access is precisely what it should be. I am Ricardo Silva, the new owner. Perhaps you missed the memo. His tone was calm, but a dangerous glint flickered in his eyes. Sterling's smile widened, a practiced, almost predatory gesture. Oh, yes, the new owner. Unfortunately, Mr. Silva, our records indicate a different individual. And given your unconventional methods of attempting to gain entry, we've been forced to take precautions. He gestured vaguely at the security guards, who shifted their weight subtly. A wave of disbelief, quickly followed by a surge of cold fury, washed over Ricardo. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a blatant power play. He saw the calculated disdain in Sterling's eyes, the dismissal of a man who didn't fit their preconceived notions of ownership. Unconventional methods. I simply walked in, Sterling, as I am entitled to do. Are you suggesting I'm trespassing in my own hotel? Sterling leaned back, a picture of smug satisfaction. We are merely ensuring the security and integrity of the establishment, Mr. Silva. Until we can verify your claims, we must respectfully ask you to leave. Or be escorted. The implied threat hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Ricardo's jaw tightened. He could fight, physically, but that wasn't his battle. Not yet. He took a slow, deliberate breath, the scent of expensive polish and Sterling's cloying cologne filling his nostrils. Very well, he said, his voice a low growl. You want me out? I'm out. But understand this, Sterling. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. He cast a last, searing look at the general manager before turning on his heel and striding out, the guards trailing him like shadows. The elevator doors closed with a soft, final hiss, leaving him to the cold, impersonal silence of the empty corridor. The call to action. A sudden, jarring vibration beneath Marco's hand ripped him from the opulent silence of the hotel's executive lounge. His phone, a sleek black rectangle, glowed with an unfamiliar number. He'd expected an apology, perhaps a groveling plea, but the voice that crackled through the speaker was sharp, urgent, and undeniably female. "Mr. Ramirez? This is Elena from legal. We have a problem." Her words were clipped, devoid of the usual corporate pleasantries. Marco's gaze swept over the deserted lounge, the untouched crystal glasses reflecting the faint morning light. "A problem?" he echoed, a cold premonition tightening his gut. "I believe the problem has already been handled, Miss Elena." "Not entirely. Our internal systems just flag a massive transfer of funds, an unsanctioned withdrawal originating from a dummy corporation tied to the hotel's primary accounts." "Multiple accounts, actually. It started roughly 30 minutes ago." The last phrase hung in the air, a chilling echo of his own recent dismissal. Marco's knuckles whitened around the phone. He knew that timing wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't just about his pride anymore, it was about the integrity of everything he'd built. "Who authorized it?" he demanded, his voice dropping to a low growl. "That's what we're trying to determine. The paper trail is deliberately convoluted, but the access codes used, they were revoked for all but the highest level management. Yourself included, as of an hour ago." A slow, burning anger ignited in Marco. Someone wasn't just trying to humiliate him, they were trying to dismantle the hotel from the inside. "Get me every detail. Every IP address, every login time, every employee with access to those codes. And prepare termination letters for anyone involved." "Everyone." He paused, his mind already racing ahead, formulating a battle plan. "This isn't just about the money, Elena. This is war." The grand return. A hush fell over the opulent lobby, the polished marble reflecting the anxious faces of the remaining staff. 30 minutes. 30 long, agonizing minutes since Mr. Alistair Finch, the hotel's ostensible owner and CEO, had been unceremoniously escorted out. Now, the main door swished open again, and a figure strode in. It wasn't Finch. It was Mateo Ramirez, the man they'd all dismissed as a mere guest, the one Finch had publicly humiliated. But this time, Mateo wore a sharply tailored suit, its fabric shimmering subtly under the chandeliers. His eyes, usually warm, held an unyielding glint as he surveyed the assembled employees. A low murmur rippled through the room. The air grew thick with a mix of fear and dawning comprehension. "Good evening," Mateo's voice, now amplified by a small, discreet microphone, cut through the silence. It wasn't loud, but it resonated with undeniable authority. "My name is Mateo Ramirez. And as of this moment, I am the rightful owner of the Grand Regent Hotel." A gasp erupted from a cluster of housekeepers. The front desk manager, Miss Albright, a woman known for her icy composure, paled visibly. Mateo paused, letting his words sink in. He locked eyes with Miss Albright, a flicker of something unreadable passing between them. "My initial visit was an undercover assessment," he continued, his gaze sweeping across the stunned faces. "An assessment that, regrettably, revealed a deep-seated rot within the management, a rot that trickled down and impacted every single one of you." He gestured towards a man in a dark suit who had quietly entered behind him. "This is Mr. Davies, my legal counsel. He has already begun processing the necessary paperwork." Mateo's voice hardened. "Effective immediately, Mr. Alistair Finch and anyone directly involved in his corrupt practices, including those who knowingly participated in the discriminatory treatment I received, are terminated." A collective intake of breath. The bellhops exchanged wide-eyed glances. The tension in the room was palpable, a live wire humming with a potent mix of shock and a nascent, dangerous hope. The Grand Regent, it seemed, was about to undergo a seismic shift. The owner's verdict. The opulent lobby, usually a symphony of hushed conversations and clinking glassware, now hummed with an unsettling silence. David, still clad in his disguise of an ordinary guest, stood before the hotel's owner, Mr. Sterling, a man whose reputation for ruthless efficiency preceded him. The general manager, Mr. Harrison, fidgeted beside Sterling, his face a mask of barely suppressed panic. "So, Mr. Smith, is it?" Sterling's voice, a low rumble, filled the space. His eyes, the color of storm clouds, bored into David. "You claim our staff was less than accommodating." David met his gaze, a flicker of a smile playing on his lips. "Less than accommodating is an understatement, Mr. Sterling. I was turned away, treated as a nuisance, and ultimately, left stranded despite having a confirmed, paid reservation." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "And for the record, it's Mr. Rivera." A gasp escaped Harrison's lips. Sterling's expression remained unreadable, but a muscle twitched in his jaw. "Rivera. As in, the Rivera?" "The very same," David confirmed. He gestured towards the reception desk. "Perhaps your excellent front desk team could pull out my real reservation." "Under David Rivera." Harrison scrambled to the desk, his fingers fumbling with the keyboard. The young woman who had dismissed David earlier blanched, her eyes wide with dawning horror. A moment later, Harrison's face went ashen. He turned back to Sterling, a silent plea in his eyes. Sterling's gaze swept over the assembled staff, who now stood in various stages of disbelief and dread. "So, you're telling me," he said, his voice dangerously quiet, "that we just ejected the owner of our parent company?" He didn't wait for an answer. "Mr. Harrison, your immediate resignation is accepted. As for the rest of you who were involved in this debacle," his eyes landed on the front desk staff, the bellhops who had ignored him, and the manager who'd brushed him off, "consider yourselves terminated. Effective immediately." The pronouncement hung in the air, a cold, unyielding hammer blow. The once bustling lobby was now a landscape of stunned, broken careers. David watched, his expression unyielding, as the reality of Sterling's verdict settled upon them. A new golden star. The scent of stale coffee and fear hung heavy in the air of the executive boardroom. Mateo, now officially reinstated and radiating an icy calm, leaned back in the plush leather chair that had, mere hours ago, been occupied by a smirking board member. His gaze swept over the assembled, pale faces of the remaining hotel staff, a silent judgment in his dark eyes. They shifted uneasily, a collective intake of breath when his attention paused on Mrs. Albright, the head of HR. She wrung her hands, a nervous tic Mateo remembered from his undercover days. "Mrs. Albright," Mateo's voice was low, cutting through the tension like a razor. "The employment files of Mr. Henderson, Miss Dubois, and Mr. Garcia. On my desk, within the hour. Along with their severance packages." A gasp rippled through the room. These were long-serving, highly placed managers. Mrs. Albright's jaw dropped. "Mr. Santiago, with all due respect, these are vital cogs in our operation." "No," Mateo corrected, his voice humming. "They are rusted gears. And the entire machine grinds to a halt because of them." He then turned to Mr. Davies, the head of security, who had a faint sheen of sweat on his brow. "Mr. Davies, expect a full report on the security breach that allowed me, an unregistered guest, to be so easily escorted off the premises. And a detailed plan for immediate rectifications. By end of day." Davies nodded, swallowing hard. The weight of Mateo's authority was palpable, a stark contrast to the deferential employee he had once dismissed. Mateo rose, his presence filling the room. This hotel will reclaim its 5-star status, and it will do so by shedding every ounce of dead weight and embracing true excellence. Consider this a new dawn. A new golden star. Those who are not ready to shine, he paused, his gaze unwavering, will find themselves in the dark. He walked out, leaving a stunned silence in his wake, the reverberations of his words echoing long after the door clicked shut.